All right, so on this video, we're going to be talking about October 19th. And no, this is not UFC. This is PFL. October 19th, it's going down in Saudi Arabia, and it's going to be PFL's super fight matchups. And we got two fights so far that night. Now, I don't know if that's just the fights that we're having that night, just those two. It'd be kind of crazy just to have two fights. But as for right now on their website, this is what they have. Saturday, October 19th, Super Fights Women's Featherweight Championship is going down. And it's going to be Chris Cyborg versus Larissa Pacheco. And now, as we know, we got to get back into the basics and the history of these two women right here. So we got Larissa Pacheco, who was technically last year's champion, which if the belt was going on to this year and it wasn't a new season, she would be this year's champion. Now, as we could tell, it is the Super Fights Women Featherweights Championship, so there will be a belt on the line. How it's going to go with the regular season winner and this person, maybe they face off on champion versus champion. I have no idea. They already did the Bellator versus PFL champs, so no sense in doing that again because we already know who the best in the world out of those two organizations are on that night that happened. And I believe that was like back in February of this year. So with these two women, Larissa Pacheco beat Kayla Harrison, who has just signed with the UFC. And crazy enough, her record is 23 wins, 4 losses, 0 no contest. So at 5'6", 145 pounds, and 69 inches in arm reach. And as we know, she's a Brazilian and she's going up against another Brazilian. Well, we got a Brazilian on the ground specialist, Larissa Pacheco, and then we got Chris Cyborg, who is a striker on the feet. Now, Chris Cyborg only has 2 losses in her professional career, which is crazy. One of those coming to Amanda Nunes. And as Chris Cyborg sits at 27-2 and 0 with 1 no contest, absolutely crazy. She's got 2 inches on reach of height on her, and we don't know about the arm reach or the leg reach. But Chris Cyborg is the Bellator featherweight champion, and Larissa Pacheco is technically PFL's featherweight champion in the women's division. So these ladies are going to go head to head, and it's going to be a clash of women titans, and I can't wait to see how this one plays out. Kind of crazy because they were trying to make Kayla Harrison stay so she could face Larissa Pacheco, but Kayla Harrison ended up fighting, I believe it was Aspen Ladd, and with her fighting her, just really didn't make any sense. They just fed her a can. Lady that can't make no weight. Tried to make weight over and over again. So they let her go up to 145 instead of 135, where she failed to make weight in the UFC. So they fed her a trash can, and then she ended up, her contract was over, so she signed with the UFC. So Kayla Harrison said that she called for, Chris Cyborg, and obviously Larissa Pacheco just beat her last year. So with her going to UFC, we probably won't ever see that happen unless as we get into the other super fight of the PFL division, and it's going to be the heavyweight division. Absolutely crazy with the heavyweight division right here because with the heavyweight division on fire in the PFL, we got the Phenom, Rena Ferreira, and he is coming off a spectacular season from last year and this year, taking out the likes of Jamal Jones and other contenders in the heavyweight division and just wiping them clean. Face shots, kicks to the face. You just don't get no better with a person that's 6'8" and that's 13-3. But he does have 3 no contests, which on a record like that doesn't really look too good because you got to go back and you got to look at the fights and you got to see how that played out, how that worked itself out. 3 no contests, that's a lot of no contests if I'm being honest with you. But at 260, 6'8". This guy is a phenom. And obviously that is his nickname. But with his height and his reach and his power, he's going up against a guy coming from the UFC, never lost the UFC heavyweight strap, actually knocked out Stipe Miocic, who is considered the greatest heavyweight the UFC has ever had, defended the belt 3 times. But going back to Francis Ngannou, he this it's absolutely insane how he got let go of the UFC, got out of his contract, and signed with the PFL. I get it. I see the vision. They're trying to build the brand, and they need somebody that didn't lose the belt. They need somebody hot in free agency. And when they signed Francis Ngannou, it was absolutely massive deal because getting somebody who hasn't lost the belt in the UFC, which is considered the premier organization of mixed martial arts, let's just put it out there. It's considered the premier league. So with the B league like PFL that's trying to rise to the top and meet the UFC standards that the UFC has set amongst other organizations that haven't quite reached that standard yet, Francis Ngannou is a hot ticket. And for them to purchase him and bring, obviously, let him have his boxing fights and do his thing that he wants to do, but bring him back versus the Phenom, yo, the Predator is about to have a great night because obviously they both have the same losses. Francis Ngannou sits at 17-3 and at 6'4", with only weighing a couple pounds less. And with that being said, 4 inches shorter, he's facing a guy that's taller than him. So for once in a while, he's gonna face a guy who he's got to swing upwards to and not downwards or eye level. I can't wait for this fight. It's gonna be crazy. Francis Ngannou, who was the UFC's heavyweight champion, never lost the belt. Now, the only way that I see the winner out of Larissa Pacheco and Chris Cyborg fighting, if, let's just say, John Jones gets through Stipe Miocic and he does fight Aspinall, and then somehow you got Kayla Harrison over in the UFC and she wins the bantamweight title, it doesn't make sense to do the bantamweight strap versus a featherweight fighter. But if they could somehow make that work, I could see this being two super gigantic fights that they could put together. The winner out of this fight, hoping being it'd be Francis Ngannou. Otherwise, I don't see that working out because they could say, Rena Fajeda got lucky shot or he just beat him or they do a rematch. Because obviously, if Francis loses, he's going to want to do a rematch with them. But seemingly, as they are only going to do these super fights once a year at the end of the year, like as the end of Big Bang, I don't see how they could put these fights on all the time. As for saying they don't have, you know, more than these four people who is really, out there and trying to be in the super fight divisions. So I don't see much of this going down except for let's see who wins out of these fights right here, out of these two fights, and then we can see what happens to the UFC, and maybe one day we could see two organizations come together, collab, and make this happen. Hasn't happened in mixed martial arts, and I don't know if it will. But check in with me, be rocking with me. That's what's up. I appreciate you. Stay tuned for more videos, and we're gonna get it in. Let's go.